Rats are the hardest things to get rid of.
Pardon?
Rats are the hardest things to get rid of. When there's too much food around, it's a nightmare.
Well, I guess if you like.
Your operation is to take the money from this chest, move it through the books, and take it into this purse, which is yours. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, first thing you're going to find yourself is an officer. Every officer is a gentleman, a man of generous, independent means, a person for whom money is no object. As a gentleman, it would be uncouth, uncivil for a gentleman to dirty his hands handling money. It is beneath him. If a gentleman has to ask how much something costs, maybe his word is not always good. Perhaps he can't afford it. So a gentleman must be unconcerned by the finances. He must just say, oh, whatever it is, I will pay for it.
Hello. Hello.
Well, on the farm, you'd move the drop toilet around, then you'd empty it out on the side. So, absolutely.
Yeah, well,
or needles.
Hi.
Century, all fabric was made entirely by hand. So for wool, it would come off the sheep and it would be washed and then carded.
Yeah.
So this thing's
Yeah.
all by hand, and then it would be spun just so them.
Yeah, now I'm using drop spindles because you can't take a spinning wheel on the baggage cart unless you bribe the sergeant.
Ah, so it's expensive.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
So everybody would have a drop spindle because you can earn your living by knitting small items like hose, you'd call
Yes.
socks,
Yeah.
mittens and
Yeah.
hats, garters to hold your hose up.
Yeah.
So all these little things you could make when you were with the army and you could sell. Because
Yeah.
not all women were of loose morals of the army.
No.
They
It's a
were
morals again. We
No.
were talking morals just up
We
there.
were. We were saying.
Prepare the marshals! Shoulder your muskets!
Why do they have guns?
They're replica.
on the kind of control that seemed to only belong to parts of the country, one of those things being the ship tax. The ship tax was taxed to raise ships in order to protect the coastline, but it was across the country. Now you can imagine that if you were living in the heart of Warwickshire or Worcestershire, where a lot of these battles were taking place, you were not happy about paying for protection of the coastline, because that's exactly what you weren't seeing. You were not getting any benefit from that.
Commanded by a guy called Denzel Hollis, one of those 5 MPs. And we'll talk about Denzel Hollis in a minute because his regiment is quite important. But what happens effectively is the king runs around and eventually, in August, raises his colour in Nottingham. He raised his colour there on the 22nd of August. Overnight, the colour blew down. That was a bad omen, wasn't it? But in the meantime, the army's being raised. Now, coming over, dashing over from Europe are his 2 nephews, Rupert and Maurice. Now, Prince Rupert's going to be quite a character. You're going to hear a lot about Prince Rupert today. Prince Rupert had been studying for a whole art of military science because he'd been held a prisoner. His parents had been the rulers of the Palatinate involved in the 30 Years' War, a massive, massive war going on in Europe. Dwarfs the Civil War. And the clues of the title, it lasted for, how long did it last for, Ali?
30 years!
30 years, that's right. And Rupert himself was brought up, basically, as a Greek command back on it. Edgehill was the first major battle, and then commanded. But he didn't command during skirmish 3 years earlier, because it could have been... Can't be precise about anything. Now, what seems to have happened is some parliamentarian cavalry came rushing into the Earl of Essex while he was celebrating Mass and said, there is a problem. There is Royalist cavalry on top of Edgehill. At which point he called his army out. And the 2 armies basically took the whole morning, set themselves up. Essex at the bottom of the hill, Charles I and his army at the top. Both sides waited to see what happened. Now, it was in the Earl of Essex's interests to drag this out because his
Opened fire.
the Parliament's fire
So
now.
Parliament has decided they're going to actually open the bidding and see what goes on from
What happened on the day? We believe there were 2 shots fired by the Parliament Army and then silence. We believe it was all a typical raw troops. We don't believe anyone meant to fire at all.
It was an important and precious thing, and so would be guarded as much as they possibly could be, because it was, at the very least, if it wasn't going to cause a lot of damage to the troops, then it was actually quite terrifying. As sort of some of you are already feeling the sensation of it through your feet as it comes uphill. But the other thing, of course, that was required of a gun captain was they needed to know about angles. Because if you're firing uphill, then you need to think about the geometry of the landscape that you're working in order to be able to make your cannon operate at its best. As you can see, their barrage is just continuing. The rest of the troops have not moved. They are just letting the artillery take the weight at this particular point.
That's very wise, because one thing we know about the King's Army is it was very under-equipped with powder. Now, I noticed some musketeers in the Royal Army let a shot off there. We believe the average Civil War musketeer would probably take 12 rounds onto a battlefield. Now, they could be resupplied during the battle, but that meant people bringing more powder onto the field. Now,
Means that he's been trying to get into places where there are supplies of powder and shot, which is what he needs to keep going. The largest supplies, of course, being in London and currently in control of Parliament.
well, it's interesting because so far the main armories are Bristol, Hull, London, all of which are owned by Parliament. So Parliament, and also because Essex has brought together a group of seasoned officers, whilst the King's been rapidly raising his army, not only has Essex had control of the ammunition and money from the city, he's been able to actually train his infantry.
We've got cavalry coming up on our left here. So this is Royalist cavalry.
Where we're sat up here, what we can't see is that already Rupert has chased off one of the parliamentary brigades, Charles Essex's brigade, and has also chased off the Parliament horse. Now that's a very, very big thing, isn't it, Ali?
It is. They've now used their heavy firepower of using the cavalry to try and break the line of Parliament, and it looks like they may well have done, but Essex is seeming to be holding strong. So it's now up to the foot, the infantry, the pike and musket, to start moving downwards in order to try and see if they can now influence the battle in their favour. They are giving up the...
Now, theoretically, what your average 40-year-old cavalry commander would do would be swing the cavalry round and attack the Parliament army in the flank. But Rupert, 23 years old, headstrong, he's going straight towards Kyneton.
And with a bunch of his mates with him, they are heading out, and they don't stop until they have reached the other side of Kyneton, which is 7 miles away.
Now, what's interesting during the actual battle is most historians first used to argue it was a complete rout, but we now have eyewitness accounts. There's a fantastic one as Charles Lucas's horse chased off Charles Essex's brigade. Another parliamentarian officer pulls out a poleaxe and tries to hack down a royalist officer, and so Thomas Byron has to ride in and place a pistol against the man's face and fire. So that's not the sign of a routing cavalry. That's a sign of basically, I think, the cavalry fight probably continued longer than we give it credit for, Ali.
Yeah, I think they were probably neck and neck all the way through, but they became about cavalry fighting cavalry, and it was almost as though they had forgotten that the rest of the army was going to need their support, and that may have been a decisive factor in what happened next.
This leaves the King's infantry now to finish the Earl of Essex's infantry that has stayed following the cavalry rout. So down on the parliamentarian side, we're going to have the brigades of Thomas Ballard. Now Ballard is quite a character, very audacious, proud. I think been phenomenally successful at the start of the battle. The Parliament army still has some cavalry on the field. Now that could be a big factor over the next few months. Now there we see immediately Balfour is deploying his cavalry and forcing what looks like he filled his brigade into a formation. Now you notice the pikes are coming down there, the musketeers are running for cover, the colours and drums are moving away for safety. That's what cavalry can do if they catch you on your own. Now that was quite a deft move there by the Parliament.
Yeah, that was quite a fast one. You can see that there's...
Just say something.
Okay, my name's Steve. I'm a musketeer for the Army of Parliament.
Anything else?
Yeah, pox on the King, God save Parliament.
But it was still